Welcome to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here to guide you down the rabbit hole into the world of psychoactive plants, frogs, and fungi. Hello, you beautiful souls. Good morning and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here with a special guest. You guys are going to love this guy. Some of you may already know him. Others, you're going to want to, so stay tuned. Our guest today is Aid, and some call Aid a natural outlaw. Some call him a madman on a mountain. But for us who've gotten to know him, we really like to just describe him as our friend Aid. He's lived nomadically in the middle of a forest, on mountaintops, in a tent. He's really great at sharing knowledge and experience and understanding. So I'm really excited to really just, I guess, really share him with you guys. So I'm going to cut this short. We'll get right into the heart of it all, okay? Here we go.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello and welcome, you beautiful souls. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, and this is the Integration Station. I've got a wonderful guest here, Aid, and he is building a psychedelic garden in the mines and also in person in his home area. And I'm going to let him share all of that with you, as well as, some other topics that he's really passionate about. So it's going to be a really full show today. I encourage you guys to not only tune in, but to, drop all the technology and just hang out and, be part of this experience. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass over to Aid because he can share his story a lot better than I can here.
Hola, greetings from Catalonia. We're in Catalonia, and we've had quite a journey over the last 2 years, and we've all had quite an interesting time over the last 2 years. What we do and what we are really just a healing collective, but we're growing a bit like mycelium, you could say. Now, our little boutique, our little association, our little club, we provide everybody with the medicine that they need. But the money that we make from it, we then put back into building a community here. We bought the land with it, as well as providing free medicine for those who don't necessarily have the money to afford it. When you mentioned the subjects that I'm really passionate about, the sanctuary we have here was really founded on my experience of being homeless in the UK. So maybe we could start the journey there.
Yeah, please.
Maybe explain that one. Sorry, I've got a bit of a itchy nose. We've got a lot of pollen at the moment and it's very windy. So it's just going straight up the night. I live in a tent. So winding the clock back about 3 years, I became very ill. It suddenly sprung up on me and I'd be walking down the street and I'd just collapse, just fall down. And one day I fell down and I didn't know where I was. I'd been living in this town for 25 years. And I was walking down the street that I walked down every day for 20 years. And I didn't know where I was. So, did the usual rounds, go to the doctor and say, not feeling very well, this is happening. Was given a choice of 5 pharmaceutical drugs, and I declined.
Did you say pharmaceutical?
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I dropped.
Thank you. No, I've never heard that before. I just wanted to be sure. Sorry to interrupt.
Some of my views can be a little bit astringent. For example, what we're doing here, we are not dealing with drugs. We are dealing with plants. We are dealing with nature. We are dealing with what Mother Nature has given us and other animals, because we're not the only ones who benefit from these. Cats benefit greatly from cannabis and mushrooms. You should see the results. We've got very intelligent cats on our mountain. So,
and they go for it. Even dogs too. I find like whenever harvest season is, like dogs are just rolling in it like as if it's catnip. The cats are stealing it. They all want to be a part of the bounty. I always love that.
It is, and horses as well. They used to say in the UK that if you follow horses during the right season, they'll just take you to the mushrooms, and you'll know which are the right mushrooms because they'll be eating them. And then you just see them lie down, and that's it. They're just in happiness. I grew up around horses, so.
I did too, actually, and they never taught me that.
Oh,
that's wonderful. That's cool.
Yeah, that's real old English country yokel stuff. It's good. But
yeah.
So yeah, I was rather ill. I kept falling down, and went to the doctor. The doctor said it looks like you got multiple sclerosis. And I thought, well, I'm not really happy with being told what I have when I can't believe I should be ill. Why should I be ill? So I had a fundamental rethink about my diet. Out went the coffee, out went the nicotine, out went the alcohol, all the what I now call slave drugs, because they're very addictive. They're very addictive, and they cost you a lot of money. So I can't really see any great.
Yeah, and who's earning that money?
Exactly. So totally changed my diet, and my son was a bit like me when I was younger, dibble-dabbling and all sorts of things, and he had a good supplier for weed. And one day I had a grand mal in the garden. I just completely I was frothing at the mouth, my arms and legs going everywhere, and he blew cannabis smoke in my face, and within a minute I'd stopped. And that's when we knew what needed to be done. So that was great, brilliant. So we could get this under control. But then, because of the way the UK is constructed in terms of law, it became very difficult. And in the end, I had to make the choice as to whether to continue with the collective, continue with the medicines that we were creating, because we'd gone through a whole phase of trying different ways of making, in this case, cannabis. We'll come on to mushrooms shortly, but in this case, cannabis, so that we can consume it outside. People don't know, there's no smoke, there's no smell. So started off with bread, so making cannabis bread. And in our e-zine a couple of months ago did the recipe. But if you know how to make bread, cannabis bread is a piece of cake, piece of bread. Take the flower straight off the plant. It can be freshly picked, roughly chop it, put it in the flour mix, and then as the bread proves, if you prove it twice, once to raise and second to prove, and then you bake it for your 20-25 minutes, you have very potent bread. You don't need to decarb it before you put it in. All the flavour is retained. So if you're a boutique grower and you grow for the love of the plant and you've got the terpenes and the flavour, bread is the most wonderful recipe because you don't lose anything. It's in there. It's all sealed, and the flavour, and 2 slices of bread, and we were sitting there, unable to move. But then one thing led to another, and it became difficult because of the legalities and the potential loss of home and everything. So I had to make the choice to either follow this path, which was making me well and making others well. At this stage, I was making the jam and just giving it to my friends. In Bedford, I got to know quite a lot of the multiple sclerosis community, and the jam was really doing them good. 1 teaspoon breakfast, lunch and dinner, and there was no pain, and there was no spasticity, there was no loss of thought, there was no collapsing. And one of my friends, she hadn't picked up her kids from school in 3 years because of this blooming MS, and she'd been eating the jam for a week, and she walked to meet them, and she walked back. The weekend after that, she went to a rock concert with her other half and went into the mosh pit. So this is a lady who hadn't really been out of the house in 3 years because of what the pharmaceuticals, they weren't to help, that's for sure. But this did. And that's what proved the journey. That's what proved the path. And that's really how we came to meet each other, because all of this opened up so many different doors. Now, during this period, I met a lot of people, and it became quite clear that there were certain places in the world that are good to go to because the communities there understand what we're doing. You probably find this yourself. If you're in a city, people tend to have a more conservative attitude to things. It's maybe my experience. But where we are up in the mountains in Catalonia, the community of herbal medicine is big. The Mediterranean medicine cabinet is really proficient. Been analysing a lot of the plants around here, and a lot of them have the same cannabinoids that cannabis has. Maybe not the THC, but you've got linalool, the pine one. There's a whole host of them in, for example, the immortal family. And that is antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory. It's got all those benefits. So, yes, that's how things started. And working out where to be was, well, at that stage, I was living on the streets in the UK because of what we were doing. And it's funny how you can survive on the streets with a library and a little bit of electricity in a cafe. You can do it. It's not particularly comfortable, so came to the conclusion that probably the best place to be would be somewhere warm if we were going to continue this kind of lifestyle. So decided to walk to Spain. It's 1,000 miles. The idea was to raise 1 million smiles, and I think we beat that target. But the big thing was also to talk with people and say, look, this 5-fingered, 9-fingered leafed plant is not demonic, it's not bad. Psychedelics are not demonic, they're not bad. They actually release you, they open you, they enable you. As a friend of mine from my teenage years said, LSD is a key. It ain't no drug, it's a key. And it opens the doors of perception for you to be able to see through and into other realms, as well as inside. And taking that on board, along with the herb, as Mr. Marley said, it's a herb. Please, let's get a sense of proportion here. It's a herb. And there are other plants like it. So the walk started and raised the money on the way to buy the land. I set up the website as was travelling down. We created a Jamja kitchen, so we could cook the jam, and got talking to a very knowledgeable, very kind gentleman, who we then set up the You Grove Apothecary, and that led us into more of the psychedelic territory, and it was perfect timing, absolute perfect timing, because albeit it's quite easy to say, here's the house, here's the keys, have it all, because I left the UK with £256 and 12p. Literally £256 and 12p. It sticks in your mind.
Yeah.
So everything was left to my family. We have to do that. In the UK, there's a really silly law. It's called the Proceeds of Crime Act. They brought it in 2016, I think it was. And now you have to prove that you didn't get income from something, whereas before they had to prove that you did. So they will now take everything away from you if they believe your property in any way has been funded by cannabis or psychedelics, in essence. So I had to be really careful. So vroom, that's gone. Have to start, and off we go. And during that journey, gosh, it was quite a journey. Met a lot of fascinating people, very kind people, and people with very interesting stories to tell. Now, one of the subjects we were going to focus on was suicide. Now, suicide is, it's quite, it sounds really corny, so please excuse my phraseology, but it's very close to my heart. I don't know about yourself, and I'm not asking for you to share, but I have, over the course of my lifetime, there's been more than half a dozen times I've tried to end it. Now, each time I've been pulled back. Each time something fundamental has changed in my life. Now, the last time was really just before this happened and was about to be made. I had to make myself homeless. I had to leave, because otherwise my family would be impacted, and that'd be wrong. And for some reason I felt it would be a good idea to take, what did I do? It was 3 packets of paracetamol, bottle of whiskey, Scottish single malt. I used to love Scottish single malts, and some PCP. I mixed it all up, poof, all down. For the whole week, I had what I thought, it felt like a flu kind of cold, but I had a lot of visions. I saw a lot of different things. I've envisaged our sanctuary. I saw it working. I envisaged our association, our club, our members-only website. I saw all of that. I also saw mushrooms growing. I saw all sorts of things that then came to be. So whether it's a forethought or premeditation, or a message, I don't know, but it got me here.
Yeah.
And
sorry, Aid, I just, like, something's coming through, and I know you and I talk a lot about like growing with the mycelium, but if we think about mycelium for a minute here and take what it was you were just saying, could it very well be that maybe just how the mycelium, if something's dying in the forest, it will send that extra information there, the nutrients that it needs to then thrive again? Like, maybe this is what's happening in those moments. Because I have been there myself too, and I didn't understand, like, why am I here? Like, why is it so tough for me? Like, it's not supposed to be this way. And then, I would live through it. Now I'm really do love my life, and I'm happy to be here. And I would be very insulted if anything was taken away, maybe. Like, I really do. But you know, in those times I didn't understand, but in listening to your story, that's one thing that was coming through, is maybe it's just sending those pulses from the collective, and the collective saying like, here, this is what you need, and then you can, you know, make the most of your time here, this body that you've been given.
Yes, I'm very grateful to be here. Very grateful to be here now. So I think the other thing that I greatly learned, the other thing I greatly learned from not having a house over my head all the time is the vast majority of the people in the UK anyway, I don't know about your particular country, but the vast majority are veterans.
Yeah. Here too, it's like 2 of 3 are suicide, I think. It's a crazy amount.
It is a ridiculous amount, and as an association, as a members-only club, we have a lot of battle PTSD veterans, and this is where it links in with microdosing. Microdosing was a revelation to me, an absolute revelation. When I got here, I'd done the journey, I got here, but I was really ill. I'd stayed by a river, and for 2 days I'd been bitten by mosquitoes. I think I was in toxic shock. So when I got here, I spent 2 nights in a hotel. The little money I had left over, I spent on a hotel because I was so poorly. And after that, because I'd gone from walking and everything very basic, having to ask people for food, having to ask people for water, having to ask people for directions, all of that on the way here, because I didn't have any money. I didn't really actually have any money until I got very close to here, and then I'd managed to raise the money to buy the land. But before then, I was eking out this 256 quid. And that was 256 quid from Grantham in Lincolnshire, North England. So I had 250 miles to walk before I got to go over the water to France and Spain. And there were big periods of depression. There were very big periods. And I think that's one of the beautiful things actually about taking your life back to real basics. So by walking and wild camping, which is what I had to do all the way down here, I had 55 kilos of weight on my back with water and food and tent. And I walked about 25 miles a day. And when you're doing that, your concentration is so much on the walking, depression goes. It's great. But then at night time, when you're resting, it's different. So the microdosing, when I got here, I was very fortunate that you grow the apothecary sent me some. It changed everything. It got me focused, it got me going again. Because once I arrived here, it's great, I'm here, but what do I do now? Yeah. I don't know anybody here. I didn't know anybody. I'd seen the land on a website, got the right feel, and turned up. So...
faith.
Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like you were like moving out of faith. Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was faith. A lot of it was faith and belief in yourself. But it's like with a lot of things, people look for a silver bullet to be able to be well, to be good, to have mental stability and all the rest of it. But it's not a single bullet. The microdoses do help. They get you going, and then you create your own life. You create your own goodness from it. Mushrooms tell you pretty much what to do. Like you say, it's the mycelium do. They bring out what is needed.
Yeah. Like that Beatles song, you always get what you need, even if it's not exactly what you want.
That's right, absolutely. You might actually turn around and go, did I want that?
Yeah. On this note, I'm just going to pause and go to a commercial break. We've got some amazing sponsors that love to contribute and help. So we'll share them and we'll come right back and we'll pick up where we were with microdosing, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, I'll see you in a few minutes.
See you in a few minutes. Ciao.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Who has huge buds? You do. If you shop at BMA Hydroponics, attend one of BMA's educational seminars and learn the secrets of growing, harvesting, processing, and consuming quality cannabis and cannabis products. Learn how to make better extracts, edibles, and medicinal creams at prices you can afford. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive, Belleville, or call 613-967-9888.
The only way to go.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Aid. He was just talking to us about veterans, PTSD, microdosing, and he's just going to continue his story here, and I'm going to sit back with my water pipe and take it all in. Cheers.
Okay. Admittedly, it is a serious subject, so it also has a lighter side, of course, because when we get through the depression to the other side, life is quite a different thing. Now, as I mentioned, on the way to Catalunya, which admittedly is part of the Spanish Empire, but is very, very, very different to Spain. It's a different language altogether. And it's a wonderful language for prose, Ash. It really is. You can get every word in the sentence to end with an A, and it just la meva casa is my house. La meva casa. It's just it's just so romantic. It's a beautiful language. So we're talking about the PTSD. On the way down here, we created a website so people could access the microdoses. Now, initially we did it so it wasn't to members only, but we had to change that because it wasn't really working the way we'd hoped. So, we did end up, which was our original focus, I'll be honest with you, when we first started having microdoses on the website, the focus was veterans. I'll be perfectly frank with you. Because I've met so many on my journey here, it just made sense. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the universe guiding us as to where we should be going and what we should be doing. And if you meet the same type of person over and over and over again, it's kind of a subtle clue, you know? Yeah. So, having spoken with a couple of these good guys and girls, we've got a mix of both. it became very clear that microdosing could very much help. So we then embarked on our first, I suppose the equivalent is sort of like a national health service. So the key point behind veterans was they got their medicine free. Okay, we've had enough of the system messing them around and dumping them, so we're going to step in and do the right thing. Now, it worked. It worked. We've had more than half a dozen cases that we know about where they've fed back and explained what they're doing in their lives. And one good friend of ours, he was in a very difficult position. We had many talks about how he'd had enough and he just couldn't take it anymore. He kept seeing all the faces of those that he had been ordered to do the nasty to. He kept seeing it. It was coming. Every dream, every moment he closed his eyes. Now, he had heard that microdosing might help, so we had a long chat and we sent him a couple of months' supply and said, look, there are lots of different ways of doing this. You've got the 50 milligram, you've got the smallest, and we always say with all psychedelics, start low and go slow. Admittedly, I didn't. My very first acid trip was when I was 13. So
yeah, my story is similar. I didn't start low, but when I did get my hands on microdose protocols, it was at the right time in my life. Those synchronicities like you were talking about there, it was at the right time in my life, and now I am a firm believer. I see the benefits not only in myself but in all the people around me that are, you know, brave enough to, you know, go for it. You know, there's not a lot, it's just a lot of fear mongering and propaganda has gone into it, you know, but it's not really that scary. It's a very helpful tool.
It is. And when you're waking up in the morning, as opposed to dreading the day and dreading going outside, in fact, doing everything to avoid going outside, but actively want to get outside, want to go and do gardening, want to go surfing, because the guy lives near the sea. So it changed overnight. He was going out surfing. He was talking to people. He's now a landscape gardener. He's doing really well. He sees his children frequently, and he's now an active member of our community. And yeah, the thought of ending anything is now so far remote for all of us. Admittedly, it's not all down to the mushroom. Clearly, it's an holistic thing. But the mushroom is a facilitator, it's the catalyst, it's the key. It turns the lock and opens your heart, lets out the sadness and lets in the joy. And that's really what it feels like. It really does. It's like it's as if the darkness has been pulled out of you and replaced by the light of joy and harmony. It's really, really good. Sorry, that was my reminder to do my Catalan lessons. I will do those later.
Sorry, what's great about live recording. It's like, you really get to meet the person.
Actually, that's a very good point. Learning another language, that was another thing that I've got a lot of our friends who were thinking enough is enough on this mortal plane. Learn another language. It completely moves the mind. The mind works so much differently when you're learning another language. Depression just seems to just disappear once you get going. Duolingo, am I allowed to recommend? Is that
yes.
All right? Yeah.
Yes.
Duolingo, in my humble opinion, is as much of a lifesaver as magic mushrooms are for those who microdose. I really do. The way that you learn the language, the interaction, and the way the mind works, it makes such a massive difference. And I've looked up research, and there's quite a bit of research on that subject out there. Learn a new language, beat depression. It really does help. It's that holistic approach. Body, mind, and soul, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think, the medicine is great, but it's you that actually has to do the work, and I love that you're introducing new integration tools. This was something I didn't know, but I've seen that app several times. So, and I can see the benefit. Terence McKenna talked a lot about language too, and I think the plants also, and the frogs and the fungi, they all have their own languages as well. It's just it's with different type of harmonics, not with words. It's sometimes through imagery, sometimes it's through different harmonies, or like the experiment in Le Chara that Terence and Dennis McKenna did like 52 years ago or something. That was all about harmonics and frequency too, thinking that everybody was hearing the same frequency when on mushrooms, and we can see that on those little machines now. So this is just another version of that, language, and I love that, because I can see the potential of it just being so opening up the doors to this other world.
Yeah, very much so. Just as Aldous Huxley said, doors of perception, that's what you're opening. I mean, he subtitled it Heaven and Hell, and that's an interesting one actually, because I know we've been talking about microdosing for suicide and such like, but there's another element to it as well, and that's more to do with the end of life. Now, that was another thing we were going to touch on, and to be honest with you, that's quite a limited knowledge for me. However, that to a certain degree, it could be, right, how do I phrase this? Bear with me. It's a good move that things are moving that way in terms of allowing people to do something. Although I do find it a little bit problematic that nature is deemed illegal in the first place. I mean, what are we going to do? Put Mother Nature on trial for growing mushrooms? Are we going to? Are we
all on trial for creating DMT when we have a nice workout or focus on our breath?
Yeah. Yes. Very true. Very true. Very true. Very true. So, when it comes to the end of life piece, it's a good thing that the door is opening, but I do feel it's kind of the wrong door. It's a bit like the exit door. We should be looking for the entry door here, Having thought about it through, I sat with my mum as she passed away about a decade and a bit ago. She had pancreatic cancer. Most definitely a result of paracetamol and codeine. She used to take a lot of it. Pancreatitis is known to be, paracetamol and codeine pretty much are pancreatitis from research I found. Happy to be proved wrong, but so I sat with her while she was being fed with morphine and all the rest of it. And there were moments when she really wanted to talk, and I just came in and just topped it up so she'd be gone again. Maybe with psychedelics, because for example with LSD-25, it's a very good pain reliever as well, isn't it? And ketamine too. I mean, ketamine is pain reliever. It's horse tranquilizer.
Cambo as well. Yeah, Cambo is like 40 times more potent than the opiates available, and there's no come down, and there's no addiction. It's too much of an ordeal medicine for there to be any addiction to
it. True.
There's a lot of opportunities out there when it comes to plants, frogs, and fungi. Help with pain and many other things, including end of life, including fear of death, including suicidal thoughts and ideations.
It seems to get rid of all the negativity. And I started thinking, I don't know about you, but we're talking about giving psychedelics to people who are ending their life. Now, they're going to be in a bit of a traumatic state, potentially. My personal belief system pretty much means that it holds no fear. And I'll be honest with you, after walking 1,000 miles through 3 countries on roads, on your own, you don't have fear anymore. You see humanity for what it is, and humanity, 99.999 recurring percent, are good and kind and generous. Not one person I met on the way down here, and I look like a vagabond. Yeah, there were days when, there were weeks when I hadn't been able to wash. So I had water for drinking, but I wasn't going to waste it to shower myself. I mean, it's a bit like me.
I was there in South America. I took buses and things like that too, but so I didn't walk the whole way. But when I went through 3 countries there, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, it was still the same thing. Like, I go sometimes days without anything. Like, food would seem to be a luxury, but because everybody had it and people were very generous in that way. But yeah, you're still kind of like fending for yourself, and I go without showers and such as well. I was going somewhere with that, but I lost it, maybe because of the water pipe. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. If you can remember something. If you can continue where you were.
Sorry. Yeah. So the thing about oh gosh, I've lost it a little bit now. Where are we? So microdose. Right. Okay. So the end of life piece. So people potentially are going to be quite afraid of death, and then I said, I'm not particularly. You walk a long way like you have through South America, and you see people for what they are. There's nothing to be afraid of. And of course, I was walking during what was the curfew or the lockdown or the whatever we want to call it. Yeah. I didn't meet anybody who got it or anything silly like that. I met a lot of people who wanted to know more about what we were doing though. What is it about this plant? How can it cure things? What's in what are mushrooms? What's that? Why should I be interested in psychedelics? Now, the really interesting thing is when you start talking to people about psychedelics, the first word they often say is a drug, which an easy counter I found on the way down here was, do you know what psychedelic means? Do you know what the word means? Do you know how the word was created? Psyche, self, spirit, ethereal essence, the thing that makes you you. Delios, from the Greek to understand. Understand yourself. It's the same temet nosce, know yourself. Temet nosce is Latin for know yourself. And if you're a fan of The Matrix, you've seen The Matrix, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Neo goes to see the Oracle, he walks through a door, and above the door is written Temet nosce, because he's going in there to find out about himself.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's a clever film, but we have to be careful where we take that film in reality.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in being a battery, thank you very much. Now, so when I started talking to people in those terms, the conversation changed. Yeah, it was almost as if we'd been talking about cocaine and then switched to fairy cakes. You know, all of a sudden, this preconception that this stuff was bad and it should be illegal and all that suddenly disappeared.
Yeah. Information is power in that way, for sure. There was so much coca, like literally everywhere in Peru. I thought it would be more popular in Colombia, but Peru, it's used in everything, including like gut health. Whenever you're climbing a lot of it's mountains, so anybody who's living in the mountains or has to like do that walk so that they keep their oxygen levels up, they're working with this plant day and night. We would mix it with baking soda and get a little buzz. Some of our things, but there's always going to be those people.
There are.
And it's very, very sacred, and there was so many medicines. What I noticed, when I was talking to other tourists, is they either knew about ayahuasca and had worked with it in some way, or they had no idea what it was at all and kind of dismissed it. I didn't like using the word psychedelic at that time, though, so a lot of the words that I was using, like, nobody knew. But that was my way of normalizing it until I realized I have to use the word in order to fulfill this.
Well, it's a bit like the conversation we've been having in the village here. So if you can imagine a village of about 700 people, we've got everything in our village, from a hairdresser and a supermarket to bars, bistros, a kayaking adventure centre. It's quite an amazing community here. It's so incredibly friendly. There's a place down the road, it's about 19 clicks down the road, and it's called Jesus. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but you're in Spain and the J is pronounced H. We're not, we're in Catalonia. And in Catalonia, a J is pronounced like a J in French. So you say Jesus. And people pilgrimage here from other countries to that tiny little place. It's a very spiritual centre around here. And people take more interest in the plants here. So over the years I've been here, we've been talking, I've got to know a lot of the local herbalists who are very, very knowledgeable. Usually the older generation, which is good. And this morning, because I've done an article about San Pedro in our e-zine a couple of months, and we do it in Spanish, and our friends in the village are reading and sharing the magazine locally as well, which is brilliant.
We've been getting it now.
Yeah. So he goes to me, so what's all this about San Pedro then? We were speaking Catalan. I said, oh, well, it's a psychedelic. Do you know what psychedelic means? And we went through all that. And he said, that's really interesting. So how do you prepare it? And I said, right, we'll get some sorted for you. And I'll get you a little one to grow, because they grow 30 centimeters or more a year. They're really quick growing, and the environment here is perfect.
They had them unlabeled at the Biodome. I was just there with the kids. It's like a museum where they have all different greenhouses for different areas. And they had 2 that were for cactus, different deserts. San Pedro was in both of them, and they left them unlabeled. There wasn't any name. They were just growing there as decoration. I'm like, I almost wanted to get a job there, because I'm the kind of person, we had talked about this before, where like I want to collect the seeds. So if I see something, even if it's in an area like that, especially if it's an area like that, I'm usually like, well, what's here? What's nature giving? How can I spread this around? And I'm like the squirrel.
Yeah, you would have got on really well with my grandparents. That they used to go to botanical gardens around the UK. My grandfather was a school teacher, and he taught pottery and English and maths. My grandmother was, she could make anything, food or material wise. She could make you a suit and make you a meal, and she could grow all the vegetables to go with it. Now, they used to go to these botanical gardens with a couple of pairs of scissors, a plastic bag and a wet tissue, and come back with cuttings. And so you get these really, really different roses suddenly popping up in their gardens. And surprise, surprise, in the village they lived in, it was pretty much every year they won the competition for best kept garden.
Amazing.
But my grandfather had this big thing. He said, nature is there. Why on earth am I giving somebody money for it?
Yeah. And if you follow that money, where's it going? I'd like to think about my money as an investment. And if nature's there, like, aren't we all entitled to that? You know, we're made to like think that it's gross. I was watching this reel by this girl yesterday, and she's like, some people think mud is disgusting, and she's stepping in it with like her bare feet, and then she's like, I think those people are disgusting. She shows her nature. It's like, you know, it's not. It's here for us. This is what we need. We need the mud for the, you know, to release those negative ions that are causing us distress and later on disease in the body. You know, it allows us to see and observe what is around, what's real. You know, it is our exit out of the matrix. And if we want to talk about heaven and hell, like what Huxley was talking about, or Napoleon Hill, it's like, this is heaven on earth if you just insist on it being so. You know, what you've done here, you know, you're having a hard time. You had this vision of what could be done about it, and you just started walking.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah.
Now look at where you're at.
Yes, totally. That's it. Totally. And yes, it's quite funny when I tell people about the PCP. So many people take a sharp intake of breath, but when I was a kid, PCP angel dust, we used to call it angel dust, and nobody had a problem with it. It was just, I don't know, it seems to have got a bad name, maybe because of the way it's been made, I don't know, but no, it made a big difference. So now we seem to be getting the psychedelics moving into our village, which is helping a lot of the people. Now, one thing we didn't mention, and this is something that I think a lot of us should be aware of. In our village at the moment, it seems like we're getting a lot of dementia. Statistically improbable, one could say. Now, one bit of research I've come across quite recently was some microdosing clinical trials with those with dementia, and they're finding it was reversing. Okay, now chemically, I keep a word away from the word science because it tends to be overused.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The clinical trials have found that not only are nerves regrowing in the brain, a lot of neuroplasticity is happening too. And I like to think of neuroplasticity as a bit like a very busy computer. And this bit's busy, so I'll unplug and plug back in here so we can get a connection that way. And the difference it's been making. So what we're thinking of doing here is trying it out. Now, clearly we're not going to charge anybody for anything. Yeah, that's just not the way we do things. So we're thinking to do our own research study here to see if we can help. If it helps, if it doesn't help, well, so be it. You've got lots of vitamin D and some nice little capsules. But if it does work, can you imagine the difference? We can reclaim our grandparents, we can reclaim our parents who might have early onset. You know? There's a lot that we can do there.
We definitely can. I think we're going to see more of it in this this next generation coming in because of the openness. Like, propaganda really is it really does seep in and control the mind. And, you know, it's the devil's work. It's the devil's play, really. And
it is. And my grandfather used to say about television, it destroys your brain. It rots the brain, he used to say. Television rots the brain. Turn it off.
Yeah.
Read a book. Go and do something. And it does, because it's very interesting. Studies about the flicker rate of the television and the flicker rate required for a hypnotist to send somebody into a trance.
Yeah, 7 seconds.
There you go.
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah,
Now,
I'm going to start being like your grandfather. I just took down those words. I'm just going to walk up and just turn the thing off. I feel like really empowered right now. It's even controlled me because I don't want to not in that like I'm watching it in that way, but you know, I give that power away to my son, and I don't want to like piss him off. He does a lot in a day too, you know, and so, but it's true. Go outside or play with your toys. Do something, read a book. You just get in there.
Anything, just do something less boring instead. They used to be.
I never thought to just turn it off, Aid.
Yeah, just that's it. And that's what my grandfather, just walk in the room, turn it off, kick me out.
When I was pregnant for him, and probably his first 3 years of life, I'd put a blanket over the TV so you wouldn't even see it in the room. But yeah, then things changed and evolved from I guess the last 3 years or so. Well, he's 6 now, so 3 and 3. Yeah, now it's time to reclaim the power.
It is. Or you could take that massive step that, living in a tent forces you to get rid of the TV.
Yeah, we do that in the summer. Like, we do spend a lot of time on the road in the summer. But now we're coming into these cold months, and it's like I could just get rid of it, but I feel like there's too many people in our life dependent, and we might likely be them too, in different ways. Yeah, I'll admit, but like a lot of the places that we're going, there's other people in the houses. Like, it's not just us, and that's how we got into this mess to begin with. Is like. With my parents in the apartment, and we're there 2 days out of the week. And then, we kind of go all over the place. We got a routine. But in those days, my stepdad, he's the type of guy, he'll turn on the TV. I turn it off like instantly. When I know nobody's watching it or anything, I'm like, I just need the quiet. But he'll just turn it on and then walk away, leave the room. And it's like, why are we all suffering through it now? And it has to be a show, he'll look for it. But the whole process of looking for something, that's like taking your time. I hate that, you know, almost the amount of choices that are there today. I don't even know how much time that people spend looking. But it's a ridiculous amount, I'm sure. And then, the time that you spend watching it and sitting, and then that causes you to eat more junk food and all this stuff. And it shows up. And I just keep telling Finn, like, you know, you don't... Essentially, I'm using my parents as an example of what not to do, like I did.
Yeah. Do you want to grow up to be like that?
Yeah. Man. He loves them, though. He worships them. But at the same time, it's like there are these little things. So he's on a thing trying to get them to be healthier. And it's great. I enforce it. But the TV's that one area. And it's still like, it brings out my anger. It triggers me in this uncontrollable way because I like to have control, Aid.
Well, we all do. Having a television on, you lose it. And there's a lady over here that I was friendly with for a couple of months, and she had the television on all day, constantly. So you always had this constant zzz in the back. And when I went to see her, because I come in the morning and we'd have a cup of tea. I've been to the patisserie. I bring some cakes. She's an older lady, and we were just having a chat. She's English and feeling a bit lonely. I come in and when she'd go to the kitchen, I'd just turn the volume of the TV right down. I wouldn't turn it off. And then I'd sit at the table so wherever she sat, she couldn't see the TV. Because otherwise, when we were sitting there, she'd be doing this. She'd be looking around at the TV.
The fear of missing out. It's real.
But it was also, she was absent from our conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you can't watch television and talk. A lot of people say, oh, multitasking. It doesn't, because it cuts across your conversation.
Yeah.
So,
and isn't presence what we're seeking for? Like, how many books and hashtags are there on just being present, be in the moment? You know, it's like, this is one of those maybe even first steps to take to be a little more present. Just turn it all off.
Turn it off, and it will improve. It will improve your depression, whichever way you look at it. And one thing that has been mentioned to me a couple of times for those going on to microdosing, and after their first couple of weeks, they said, I don't really watch television anymore.
Yeah.
And when you dig a bit deeper, you say, well, you know, you're not watching TV. I said, well, maybe, but it will be something very specific. I'll turn it on for that. I'll bugger off during the adverts and then turn it off afterwards. But to be honest, what people are generally doing is they're getting outside. They're going off doing stuff. Yeah. And a lot of them are ending up in forests. I don't know why this is happening. Well, I live in a forest myself.
They've experienced God. Like, back to that definition, right? Is like psychedelic's definition is the manifestation of the mind and finding yourself, and theogen is connecting with the divine within, but as within, so without, right? So we're just getting called back to ourselves, back to nature, you know, back to that. And I think that's part of the communication too that's coming through. It's like we have that communication with the plants when we're eating whole, healthy foods, but we're also getting this different kind of conversation from the psychedelic ones. And maybe there is this forgotten knowledge that it was all nutrition at one time, and that it's all feeding us, nourishing us, bringing us closer to ourselves and what our purpose, our dharma is here on earth.
Nice choice of words, dharma. Absolutely, absolutely, totally, yes. Oh, tears. Oh, beautiful. When you said about our food is our medicine, and this is something that I haven't had a chance to properly explore, except I've tried it with San Pedro. Now, San Pedro's got a lot of names, I know, but Huachima, Achuma. There's lots of names, but personally, I like San Pedro because San is saint and Pedro is Peter, and it's St. Peter, and St. Peter was the saint of travelers, isn't he?
It works with your nomad spirit.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it's combining these medicines actually into a food. Now, San Pedro, a lot of the feedback I'd had was it's very purging, a bit like ayahuasca. Okay. Now, I'm not a great fan of purging myself because I keep my diet very clean. I'm as vegan as a Buddhist monk can be. I'm a sucker for cheese, but but I don't eat dead animals. That's sort of like that's my thing. I just don't. If it's alive, leave it. Do you know what I mean? My view. So when I purge a lot less because I don't drink alcohol, I don't have caffeine, I don't have nicotine, I don't have sugars. So there's not much to get out, apart from chocolate. I love dark chocolate. Anyway, so
we had the cacao goddess on here
combining the dried San Pedro into a gazpacho. Sorry?
Oh, we had the cacao goddess on here talking about cacao as a psychoactive plant recently too.
Okay. Because cacao, cocoa, chocolate, when it's combined with mushrooms, it gets rid of the nausea. But we make a chocolate bar, which I was going to send you a bar of. I must get round to doing that. I completely forgot, and that was a long time ago, so I do apologise. But the difference it makes is phenomenal, because so one of the active ingredients in the chocolate, in the cacao, in the cocoa, eliminates the nausea. Now, that got me thinking there must be other ways of doing it. So with the San Pedro, I dried it, ground it, and turned it into a gazpacho. Okay, so we had tomato. These are all organic, naturally, locally grown. So it was tomato, a little bit of onion, garlic, olive oil, red wine vinegar, red pepper, cucumber, olive oil, and what's the other one? Oh yeah, a little bit of parsley. You got to have the garlic in there as well. And then added the San Pedro and had it as a drink. Now, albeit it was only 1 gram, which seemed to work out about as a gram of mushrooms. So
I'm just going to cut to commercial real quick, but we'll pick up here, okay? It's all right. I want to hear so much more, and this is the perfect time. You guys come on right back, okay?
Okay, gazpacho time soon.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponics system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Okay.
Welcome back, you beautiful listeners, and welcome back, Aid. He was just telling us about doing San Pedro in form of food. You're talking about blending it up almost like a salsa. Is that how you're doing it?
Exactly. It's a raw. It's basically a vegetable smoothie you're making, but because there's no dairy products in there, I think one thing I found, I don't know about yourself, Ash, but one thing I found is animal fats and animal foods do not mix with a lot of the organic psychedelics. They tend to purge them out of you. Now, it's interesting because a friend of mine went to an ayahuasca retreat recently, and he didn't purge half as much as he had before, but he cut out all meat and dairy, all caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine before he went for a week. And it made quite a difference. So, one thing with the San Pedro, with the gazpacho, don't have bread with it, just have it as it is. It's really tasty. Dried San Pedro tastes like mushroom.
Interesting.
It to me, it tasted like mushroom. So when you mixed it in with the gazpacho, you got kind of a mushroomy taste. So,
I wonder, could we do that in cacao, like in hot chocolate or in coffee too?
I should think so. I think the only thing I would say is the caffeine might be a problem.
Yeah.
In the raw cacao.
Because it's psychoactive as well. So now we're getting into the alchemy of things and why each person can really...
We can keep really building these. And talking of alchemy, do a little bit of a sort of like promo here, because it's been an idea we've had for about 3 years, and we finally put it together. And it's mushroom marmalade. Okay, now you might be all
really
going,
cool.
Hey, oh man, what are you doing? The logic is really simple. Lemon tech. Everybody knows lemon. So you put some lemon juice in with your dried mushrooms all ground up, leave it for 20-30 minutes, and it kind of does what the body does. It gets it ready so it's more bioavailable. I don't know the exact names of all these things that people have given these things. But the logic is simple. It's actually the vitamin C, it's the ascorbic acid that interacts. Ascorbic acid as an antioxidant. So yes, that makes sense. Makes an awful lot of sense. So the next logical step was, well, how can we get that into something with a long shelf life and is easy to ship around because people would like it? Marmalade. Marmalade is made with oranges. Oranges are jam-packed with vitamin C. Okay? So, no artificial flavors and colorings or preservatives, organically grown mushrooms and fruit, and unrefined soft brown sugar. We created a marmalade, and it does. Within 20 minutes, you get the start, a real quick uplift. And then you get a shorter duration, but much more intense, and no nausea. No nausea.
And that's kind of the goal with the San Pedro cocktail as well, is that you wouldn't have the same purgative effects. So,
Indeed, because sometimes the purging is good. We can't limit purging just to, vomiting and diarrhea. It's also the tears we shed.
And the sweat sometimes too.
Very much so, the sweating, very much so. And having a plunge pool nearby when you're on psychedelics is absolute luxury. It really is good. So, absolutely. And what we're finding is that it because of the less ill feeling you get with it, it would interest more people. Now, I'm not saying the purging's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's a thing that doesn't necessarily have to be combined in the same event. So we can get people interested by microdosing jam, marmalade. Isn't that a wonderful way to do it?
Yeah.
Half a teaspoon in the morning. You're not taking a capsule. It doesn't even look remotely pharmaceutical. You have it with breakfast. It's civilized. And it will stay in your fridge for a couple of months. You don't have to rush through it. Yeah. So that's kind of our ethos at Foragers. Our collective is called Foragers. because that's how it started, foraging food and fruit. That's how the jam started. So,
it's a beautiful expression of alchemy too, as mentioned before. Tapping into that alchemy.
Well, one day we might be able to make a DMT style ayahuasca version. And I think it's important. I know there's a lot of tradition behind the ayahuasca, albeit personally I do question some of it because of the actions of the Spanish and the countries involved. Yeah, so we have got incomplete history, to put it mildly. I'm just saying there's a lot of the history that we haven't and don't know. Yeah. And might be revealed to us again at some stage. But it doesn't mean that these medicines are out of bounds, because, and this is one thing I have heard of a lot of people who've had ayahuasca, who thought about having ayahuasca and didn't. I know we've gone off mushrooms in San Pedro, but it's actually the purging that they don't like the idea of, you know? And moving people into something bit by bit, it opens the door bit by bit, and we can get more people interested in our community, so that we can bring this love, this joy, this harmony more broadly.
Yeah, and I think there's something too with the microdosing. Like if we think about telepathy, or like being on individual planes, when there's like a few people going there, you know, that's the big heroic doses. It's like a few people at a time. There's all this space to be explored. But when we're talking about microdosing, a lot of people are doing this at the same time. And I think that leads to even more of like a collective change. You know, maybe one of those things that dominated culture is really feared for a long time and that's what we're getting out of the microdosing, because everybody's, you know, waking up doing this. We do blue honey in our own house, and again, like, it's kind of just normalized, and I do this everywhere that I go. I think I'll like make a batch. It's amazing. It tastes good. You don't get the side effects, and you get the communication, which I think is one of the things that mushrooms are doing. And you know, when you're mixing and doing alchemy, you're getting downloads from multiple different plants. Like you can do many different things with honey, and also you get the communication from the bees as well, because they've got their own unique dance, and you know, it's a different form of communication. Yeah. Sorry, I'd love to pass it back to you.
I was just going to ask, do you keep bees yourself?
No, I'd love to. Some friends of mine just started this summer, and then there's like local farmers wherever we go. So I usually like to contribute my money to the different towns. And when you're working with something local, it's actually better anyway, because then it'll help you if you have any allergies or anything. You might pick up different pollens, like how you were saying earlier, and the bees from that local area would also. So then they're giving it to you in a type of antibiotic form, but not like the antibiotics that are from the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to honey, but it has to be unpasteurized, and the more local, the better.
Absolutely. Unpasteurized, cold filtered, as nature intended. Nature knows best.
Yes.
It really does. Or shahi. I mean, to be honest with you, it's funny sometimes when you start. I'm going to tell you a really funny story, and then you'll see why I say shahi. Okay. You know, we got some cats on the mountain. Yes, we got Sativa and Indica. Sativa and Indica were originally both boys. Okay. This is, you're gonna really love this one. 2 months ago, Indica had a baby, a kitten. Just one really, really big one. They're normally palm-sized. One that came out, 2 palms, length of my hand. Now, according having dug through research papers, all sorts of things, apparently 10% of the cat population for the first year of their lives are hermaphrodites. So they can switch between male or female according to population needs. Now, sativa is a big, most definitely male. Okay, so indica has flipped. And the sign of a hermaphrodite is only one cat in the litter, and it's much bigger. Because normally they'd have 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Yeah.
So, I suppose that really... I'm not really sure how totally relevant it is, but it gives an idea really of how nature knows best. It gives an indication of how nature always prevails. Nature always ensures that it continues. And we are part of nature. We're an inherent part of nature. Some of us think we're actually put here to be gardeners, to look after this Garden of Eden we're in.
Yeah, that's in my heart.
Now, I think we mentioned earlier, I think we were offline at the time. On the walk over here, there were times when it's very hard, it's very grueling, and there was one particular time when I was walking past a lake, and walking past bodies of water in Spain in summer is a bad idea because you get bitten by clouds of black flies, and they're housefly size, and they will just cover you and bite you. Now, for about a kilometre, I was covered in these. I couldn't get away from them. But each time I was doing this, and really, I was starting to lose it, mentally and physically. And a butterfly would pop from nowhere. Literally nowhere. There'd be a bank, and a butterfly would pop in. Now, myself and a friend, we have this big thing about butterflies, and it goes back to the story of Pandora's box. Can't remember the full Greek legend, myth about it, names or anything. Pandora was given a box for her wedding, and it's really mean actually. She was told never to open it. So you're given a really pretty box, don't open it. It's a bit like giving a child a present and saying, right, don't open that present. It's just torture. So she opened it, and out came all the detritus of humanity. So you have pestilence, disease, hate, anger, greed, revenge. But last out fluttered the little butterfly of human hope. And butterflies, to me, are hope. And that's what we have, and that's what we're building. And that's what we've created in a lot of people. Hope, the light of hope. And that should carry us through.
Thank you so much. It's such a powerful message. Hope inside the human heart. Like, if we could all just even meditate on that tonight, bring it to bed with you, see what a world of difference. What a different world you wake up in tomorrow, a different body, different feelings.
And as you were saying earlier, Ash, the power of the mycelium in the human body to help us connect with each other is immense. I mean, look at this. I'm on a mountain in Spain. You're in a wonderful part of Canada. And we're talking, and we can see each other, and we understand each other.
Yeah. It is a form of telepathy, maybe even. I always feel like it's a version of cerebral, like, especially when I go on social media. I think that's one of the reasons why I've connected with so many amazing people through Instagram specifically. It's just, I have this visual that I'm going into that cerebral machine from X-Men, and I'm going to go find the other mutants, and I have like this definitive purpose, what I'm going in there to do. And I'm like sifting through the smoke and the fog, and I'm like, I got this. I got one. Let's all be heroes.
Yeah, definitely.
Just remember, drink the plant medicine. Remember.
It is. And the strength of nature too. The strength of nature. We can mess around with the weather as much as we like, and though it's not a conspiracy theory, I studied it in university back in 1987. I did a Bachelor of Science in Geography, and one of the modules was meteorological management, where they explained the chemicals at that time, how to get it to rain at a specific place at a specific time. It was open book back then. It was talked about. Everybody knew it. Very strange how things change. But coming back to that, the human hope part, one thing we haven't covered, and that's the cancer bit. Now, cancer, to my mind, and in my experience, I had cancer of the colon during my finals at uni. Lovely. So there is always hope. There's hope until the end. It's never the end until it's the end. There's an old world theatre phrase that says, "It ain't over until the fat lady sings," because you'd get the big lady at the end of the show with the big baritone voice giving the end of play song. And I don't hear any of those songs at the moment, so we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm counting on it. Honestly, it's amazing how things can change, you know? Like, I remember high school was a hard time. Like, I had friends and everything. You know, it wasn't hard in that way, but there was other things going on, like traumas that were unfolding. And 3 times I tried to end it. And it's like, now I'm at this, and it was different ways too. I was getting more creative, but I eventually found other ways to put that creative energy, which was like a key piece. But now, like being where I am today, as I was saying, it's like I keep telling myself now the new mantra is like, the rest of my life is the best of my life. I'm going to be here living a long life, you know, and I'm planning out what am I going to be doing with the life. You know, I really would be insulted if like something happened. I would feel like I was being robbed of something, which I think is, you know, that's how you know that the hope has changed. Like, hope is what gets you. It's the bridge. It gets you to where you're going. But once you're there, it's like, now it's faith in what's next and in what's coming, and faith in the potential of like humanity as a whole, and the potential of, you know, Mama Nature's abundance that's out there. Like, there's so much potential within all of us.
There is. And also to know that we can create for ourselves. We can sustain ourselves. We don't need an overarching system to manage what we need to do every day. It's just not necessary. Yeah. One of our pet projects, if I can give a little bit of a spiel on, is the All Plants Bank. Thank you. It's the All Plants Bank. And we've got a lot of seed banks around the world, and they'll sell your seeds. Lovely jubbly. But this is going to be aloe vera to Zanzibar, including erythropsum, cocoa, mushrooms of all sorts. And the idea is not money. The idea is trading. So, for example, you would like some killer kush seeds? 15? Wonderful, we'll send you 15. But at the end of your season, could you send us back 30?
And it's teaching seed harvesting, which is so important. Like, seeds, you guys, across the spectrum, it's something to look into.
It is. And the seed bank is on that basis. So rather than it being one place where they all are, a bit like our Foragers collective, it's dispersed. I used to work heavily in IT, and I think about distributed processing, because that's how the high power computers work. You have lots of computers all over the place. No, it's not one little one in one place. And it's also the way you cover for disasters if your website goes down. Distributed processing. And all we're doing here is just applying it to ourselves and what we do. Like mycelium.
Yeah. Let's grow like mycelium.
And so, the big point was that, like you were saying, you collect the seeds. We're coming up with a template and kind of got a template together, hopefully going to finish it this weekend. And then anybody and everybody can list their seeds on the site. So you might have 30 mango seeds and I've got 150 cocoa seeds, and we could swap, we could trade. We write up how to grow it, where to grow it, why to grow it, how to cook with it, how to prepare it. So you've got all that support. And the simple ethos is we want everybody to be able to grow their own food and medicine themselves.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really, I think, my own purpose and things, especially when I was getting sober. It was very much that same kind of download. It's not feed the world, it's like helping people learn how to feed themselves again. When the year that I got the download to get sober, get off alcohol, get it out of my life for good, I also gave up money, and seeds became like the new kind of currency. I got so into growing my own food, it was unbelievable. I wouldn't even get something from a grocery store unless I knew that it could be regrown from the seed, from a cutting, or from like literally placing it in water. So I learned so much about it, and that was only one form of how it paid me. But when you're working with seeds in general, like as you were saying, like you give 15 seeds, get 30 back. The truth is, guys, is that it's more like 500 times back. Seeds, it gives so much, and it gives in so many different ways. And this is what I'm talking about, nature's abundance. And you can see, like, when you're doing something like backpacking or walking across countries or anything, if you're getting these kinds of downloads, you just understand in this new way how simple life can be and abundant it can be too. Like, I learned how to trust myself, but I also learned how to trust that the universe was going to provide. It was such an empowering time. It changed everything.
And the simple thing, if you do good things tend to happen. In and around you. There is to my mind, a real karmatic element in all our lives. If we put goodness out, we receive goodness back. Inversely, we put out bad things and we receive bad things back. I think we've all had days where we've dropped things have fallen on us, and then maybe thought about it the next day and thought, yeah, I might have been a bit mean to him. Sorry. So that cupboard door was sort of like saying, don't be so mean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all energy. And it's something that we can, give away to televisions or to fear or to building prosperity and building health.
Yes. And redefining that prosperity.
Yeah.
Prosperity is not money. And how are we doing for time? Have I got time for a tiny story?
Yeah, we've got about 8 minutes.
Oh, cool. Okay. Set the scene. Walking through the Sierras of Spain. Okay. Got no water, no food, there's no buildings. It's a desert. It's a literal desert. Sierras in America are named after this place that I was walking through. I misread the map. I thought it was 25 kilometers to the next settlement. It wasn't. It's over 100. I run out of water, I run out of food, I collapse under a tree. This guy just appears from nowhere and gives me food and water. There was a building just off the road. He saw me fall. At that time, I had 20,000 British pounds in the bank. I had more money than I probably had at any time in my life, because I have no debt. So, that was positive money. Yet it was worthless because there were no shops. I needed water and food. Water in the very first order because I'm drunk for 24 hours. But there was no shop. There was nowhere to get water. There was no river. Thankfully, this guy turned up. Here's the local pig farm. And that's just really tapping into your point about ditching the money, which is what the All Plants Bank is all about. If we take money away from the seed bit, what you have is health. And on health, you can build prosperity. And prosperity is growing and being healthy and good to each other. You know?
Yeah. Building that community too, which is a big thing that I know you're about. So I'd love, before we sign off here, if you could share with everybody how it is that they can reach you, how they can connect or get involved or support anything you're doing.
Right. Thank you very much for that opportunity. allplantbank.com. We have we've only got a temporary page up at the moment. We're busy working in the background, but please put your email address in there and we'll send you lots of info as and when it arises. And I think, Ash, you mentioned you might put our details on narrative as well. So we've got an email address, an Instagram account and a website. So please feel free to drop messages to any of them. And we'll pick up and get back to you as soon as we can. We like talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in our network too, I'm sure you've seen Aiden there. He's always been a great asset, sharing along the way some of the stuff that he's up to. We love the garden. The cacti. The cacti. I've got a drip. Tried an experiment. Instead of planting the cactus upright, planted it sideways. And what should happen is you end up with a little forest of Sampetra. That's amazing. I've done that. I know it works because I did that with prickly pear.
Prickly pear? I got one of those growing here.
And it'll start growing up from all the different nodes. Gingers like that too. There are some other rind zones that can do that. Ginger, turmeric. So and it just depends on how you lay it, because it's going to grow up no matter what.
That's where the sun. Yes.
My stepdad, with his cannabis plants, he would put the seeds upside down, and he'd say that the strongest ones would push their way up, and they'd be the stronger plant, the ones that would actually make it.
Clever. Yes,
I don't know how true it is, but it is clever.
If you've got the luxury of allowing all the seeds to grow, yes, absolutely. But yes, definitely. Oh my! Well, might give that. I'll give that a go this year. Coming. See what happens. I'll let you know.
Thank you. And lastly, Aid, so I asked this question with all of our guests, and that's, if I was to hand you a dandelion, what would be your one wish?
Heal the world. So it's a bit of a big one.
We got a few minutes if you can share.
Sorry. In my mind, when the first website went up, Foragers, it was healing myself. I was very self-centered. Which happens to a lot of people who are poorly. They see themselves and everybody else as a bit of a blur because of the pain, because of the discomfort, because of the anxiety and all the rest of it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm just saying that's how it is.
It's kind of what you need in those moments sometimes.
It is. But when you then open that book to actually say, well, I've healed myself now as best I can. I can walk now and got to Spain. Bingo. We can share it. So the guiding ethic we now have is quite simple. Sharing knowledge to create understanding. With understanding comes peace.
Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Was there something else? I didn't catch that end. What else were you going to say?
Sorry, and that would be my answer to my dandelion wish.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I'm looking forward to collaborating even more as we go. Do you want to just, I know I'm going to be doing some writing for your easing. We got another minute here if you want to share about that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. The latest project. Okay, so free zine, electronic magazine, La Revista Electrónica, for those in Catalonia. It is a free magazine of 5 megabytes that we email out to people. It's also available as a download from our website. We came up with the idea because Instagram kept on shutting us down. I'll be honest, that was the reason. It just gets a bit boring after 7 times.
Yeah.
And we have a large readership base because a lot of people registered at the website. So the e-zine is called E-zine Todas las Plantas. It's available in English, Spanish, and French at the moment. It covers all plants and takes an holistic view to our health. So in there we have articles this December coming, about olive trees and how amazing olive oil is. It is amazing. It is most definitely one of the top herbs in the Mediterranean medicine cabinet. But we also have big articles about cannabis. We have about healing mushrooms, and one
recipes.
That you really like. One that we really like this month. We got an article on honey as well, and how combining with other herbs, it suddenly becomes a superfood beyond comparison. Like all sugary foods, so we take it in moderation.
Yeah.
This little button cactus is so tiny and unassuming, you'd never guess it's a plant so steeped in controversy. Say hello to peyote.
Hey, I'm Tasha the Amazon. You're watching Floralogic. Today we're talking about peyote, a tiny cactus that's caused quite a stir.
These small but mighty plants are native to Mexico and southwestern Texas and are usually found in desert scrubland. Peyote grows close to the ground, either on its own or in small clumps. Peyote is a Spanish word derived from the Aztec word for caterpillar cocoon.
Its scientific name is Lophophora williamsii. The Latin Lophophora means crest-bearing, which refers to the tufts of trichomes that grow out of the plant's tubercles, or the little hairy things coming out of the bumpy parts.
Peyote open themselves to the sun during the day and produce their flowers sporadically. The flowers are generally pink, white, or yellowish, and eventually become edible pink berries. The flowers also have thigmotactic anthers.
That means when the anther is touched, it curls over and deposits its pollen.
Most peyote grow underground, and only their tops, called buttons, are visible.
That's why they're called button cactuses.
The plants grow just 2 to 7 centimeters above ground and about 4 to 12 centimeters across.
But they're not just small, they're also super slow.
Cultivated peyote usually takes between 3 and 10 years to mature from seed to flowering age. And in the wild, they're even more sluggish.
Some wild peyote take up to 30 years to mature, like humans. On the plus side, they live a really long time.
But how exactly do they survive? Well, as a cactus, their metabolism is designed to preserve what little water they get. Their extremely thick stems also help with water retention, and they don't have to worry about the sun evaporating all the water on their big leaves because peyotes don't have leaves.
Let's get into the reason peyote is so famous. This one little plant is filled with psychoactive alkaloids growing in its tissue, specifically mescaline.
Mescaline is a naturally occurring psychedelic that can cause hallucinations when ingested.
In peyote, it's so powerful that in many countries, ingesting the plant is illegal. But tripping people out was never peyote's intention, as far as we know.
The reason it has such high levels of alkaloids is because it makes them taste terrible. And why would you want to taste terrible? So animals don't eat you. One bite of that bitter peyote and herbivores are like, no thank you. It's their defense mechanism, which means no need for spiky spines.
Peyote's history is as wild as the hallucinations it creates. Okay, maybe not that wild, but still really interesting.
Archaeologists believe peyote has been used by indigenous North Americans in Mexico for almost 6,000 years. As recently as 2,000 years ago, it was traded between tribes and used for medicinal purposes. They call it the sacred medicine and use it to treat toothaches, childbirth pain, arthritis, blindness, and even outbreaks of cholera.
But it wasn't until the 1880s that indigenous people started holding peyote ceremonies. These were religious rituals to celebrate special occasions, heal the sick, and connect with spirits.
The ceremonies were different for every tribe, but generally they'd last overnight and include singing, drumming, and dancing around a fire. Soon, the US government, along with prohibitionists and Christian missionaries, tried to ban the peyote rituals. They said they were concerned about the plant's psychoactive effects and insisted it was deadly and addictive.
So in an effort to protect themselves and their beliefs, peyote users united and created the Native American Church.
Fast forward to 1970, when the United States government officially made peyote an illegal substance. The Native American Church was given religious exemption, meaning they're allowed to legally purchase and consume it without penalty, as long as it's being used for, and I quote, bona fide religious ceremonies.
But that's just America. Peyote laws are different all over the world.
Obviously, people aren't just using peyote for religious purposes. Many want to try it recreationally, so when they find it in the desert, they poach it. All of this human interference means that the peyote population has become a vulnerable species.
Not quite endangered, but it's certainly on its way.
Their numbers are also declining because of habitat destruction and unsustainable harvesting practices. In Mexico, the cactus is protected under federal law, but still threatened by silver mining in the region where it grows. Peyote preservationists are trying to get the American government to recognize it as an endangered species and protect it with conservation laws.
In the meantime, stay strong, little buddy.
Hi After Schoolers, I'm Brandon from the YouTube channel 1% Better, and you're watching this because you want to overcome your addictions and restore your motivation. Let's get to it. We live in a world that is designed to stimulate our emotions. Every advertisement, food product, and social media post is geared to give us a short rush of pleasure, which is followed by an emptiness and a craving for more. Big companies are able to leverage our cravings and make trillions of dollars off of keeping us addicted. If you don't have a plan for yourself, you will be at the mercy of companies who will play on your impulses to control you like a puppet. You will sacrifice your free will, searching for happiness in a maze that's designed to keep you lost. Studies show that on average, people use their smartphones for about 3 hours per day. That's 1,095 hours every single year. Thankfully, there is a way to regain control over your impulses and take your power back through a practice called dopamine fasting. What's that, you say? Well, first we need an understanding of dopamine. Dopamine is a brain chemical associated with wanting. According to Loretta Bruning, author of Habits of a Happy Brain, dopamine is triggered by new rewards. That's why the first lick of an ice cream cone is heaven. 10 licks later, your attention wanders. You start thinking about the next thing on your agenda, and the next. You still love the ice cream, but you don't feel it as much because your brain doesn't see it as new information. Your brain is already looking for the next great way to meet your needs. However, with video games, porn sites, and social media, your brain always has the next thing to be excited about because they are engineered to trigger constant dopamine release. I'm sure you are familiar with the feeling of wanting to make the day productive, only to look up at the end of the day and realize you spent 4 hours mindlessly scrolling through Instagram and checking notifications. You waste time, feel bad about yourself, and things that used to excite you no longer excite you like they used to. That's where dopamine fasting comes in. Dopamine fasting is the idea that if you avoid dopamine-stimulating activities for extended periods of time, you'll be able to reset your brain and let go of addictive behaviors that negatively impact your life. It's commonly misunderstood as reducing dopamine, but that's not true. Dopamine is necessary to function as a healthy human being. Dopamine fasting exploded in interest in October 2018 and gained even more interest a year later after Dr. Cameron Sepper published an article on Medium titled The Definitive Guide to Dopamine Fasting 2.0, The Hot Silicon Valley Trend. Dopamine fasting 2.0 is better defined. It's based on cognitive behavioral therapy. It's about reducing impulsive behavior, not reducing dopamine itself. And it doesn't encourage you to act like a full-blown monk who abstains from all forms of pleasure. So what is the science behind dopamine fasting 2.0? Well, as mentioned before, it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT is an evidence-based practice and prescribed by thousands of professionals worldwide for changing behavior. CBT solutions based on stimulus control can help you reduce the probability of engaging in addictive behaviors. For example, when your phone plays your SMS ringtone, you pick up your phone and tap to open the message. The ringtone is a stimulus, and opening the message is the behavior. Here are two solutions. Number one, remove the stimulus by putting your phone in another room or disable notifications. Or two, engage in an activity that is not compatible with reading your phone, like swimming. Another solution is exposure and response prevention, or ERP. For example, you see an attractive girl on Instagram. You feel your heart rate increase and your body tingle. So you run to your bedroom, hop under the sheets, and masturbate until a deep sense of regret and worthlessness sinks in. By applying ERP, you would frequently look at attractive girls on Instagram, but refrain from masturbating. I know, it's difficult, but you can use a technique called urge surfing, which is essentially being mindful for a few minutes. Bring your attention to where you feel the urge in your body and simply be with it. Describe what the sensations feel like. When you are done, thank yourself and set your intention for what you will do next in your day. This will become easier over time, and you'll likely feel a sense of accomplishment. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, does dopamine fasting really work to manage your addictions? If by dopamine fasting you mean reducing your dopamine levels, the answer is no. But if you mean dopamine fasting 2.0 based on CBT like we just learned, then yes, an analysis of 106 studies concluded that, in general, the evidence base of CBT is very strong. But how does dopamine fasting help restore your motivation? Well, sharp or prolonged increases in dopamine levels can reduce the amount of dopamine receptors in your brain. Dopamine fasting may help increase the amount of receptors you have through a process called upregulation. The more dopamine receptors you have, the less stimuli it will take to achieve the same amount of pleasure. If you don't eat processed sugar for a month, a single blueberry could give you the same amount of pleasure as your favorite ice cream. So how do you dopamine fast? There's 2 steps. In step 1, identify the behaviors that are causing you distress, impairment, or addictiveness. 6 common impulsive behaviors are emotional eating, internet and gaming, gambling and shopping, thrill and novelty seeking, recreational drugs, and porn and masturbation. In step 2, follow a dopamine fasting schedule. For example, let's say you want to reduce the amount of time you waste on your phone. You would refrain from using your phone for 1 to 4 hours every day, 1 day per week, 1 weekend per quarter, and 1 full week per year. Start small and gradually increase the amounts of time you spend away from your phone. These are guidelines, not concrete rules. Follow a fasting schedule that works for you. So now you know how to dopamine fast, but you may find it difficult to do. Keep watching, because I'll share some tips that might make it easier for you to overcome your addictions and bad habits. So let's talk about routine and reward replacement. Imagine that you have a bad habit of going to the cafeteria to buy a Coke every day. Every time you drink the Coke, you feel bad afterwards and end up gaining weight. So you decide to do a dopamine fast. Instead of drinking a Coke every day, you try to only drink a Coke every 2 days. But you find this difficult. According to Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, here's what you can try instead. Number 1, identify the behavior. The behavior is the activity. In this example, it's getting up, walking to the cafeteria, buying a Coke, and drinking it. Next, identify the reward you're craving. A craving drives a behavior and rewards are what satisfy the craving. So ask yourself why you turn to Coke at the cafeteria. Are you thirsty? Do you want a sugar high? A moment to step away from your work? You desire social interaction at the cafeteria? Then experiment with 4 to 5 different rewards. On one day you might drink a bottle of water. If after 15 minutes your craving has subsided, then it could be you've just been thirsty but got into the bad habit of drinking a Coke instead. Another day you might go for a walk and call a friend. If after 15 minutes the craving has subsided, then it could be that you've just been craving social interaction. After each different activity you try, write down how you feel. After a number of days or weeks, look for patterns to see which reward is the one you are truly craving. Let's say you discover that the reward is the sugar high you get from drinking the Coke. The next step then is to identify the trigger. What triggers your craving for a sugar high? Is it the time of day? Is it seeing someone else drinking a Coke? Is it seeing a YouTube video advertisement? Is it because you ate something? It can be difficult to identify the trigger, but thankfully science tells us that triggers usually fall into 5 categories. They are location, time, an emotional state, other people, or the immediately preceding action. Let's say you discover that your trigger is time-based, because it always seems to happen around 3 p.m. every day, regardless of how you feel, where you are, or any other factors. Once you've identified the behavior, reward, and trigger, you will likely feel a sense of empowerment that you can change your habits. So the final
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at Pace Radio.